Good morning. What an honor to be here in the Philippines. And I want to thank Raymond Chan for giving me this opportunity to share my testimony. I know, I look a lot like him and I sound a lot like him, but actually, you know me. The title of today's topic gives it away, The Prodigal. Yes, I'm the lost son. Um, I know this is a fictitious story and I'm not real, but the event that happened was as real as can be to anybody, isn't it? And did I tell you that I was the lost son? Yes. But did I tell you that I'm the eldest son? Hmm. I know. There's not much said about me compared to my brother who just had a dramatic story, right? But I'm here to tell you my version, and it's an expanded version of that. So my story is this. I still vividly recall that incident, like it only happened yesterday. One day, I came home from work, like any other day, but that day was different because as I was nearing the house, I heard some music and the sound of feasting. And as I got nearer, I had this initial excitement in me. Um, Sounded like a party. So I asked myself, could probably Father is throwing a party, and is it me? Is it for me? But then again, my birthday was still a long way off. But again, as I got nearer to the door, to the main entrance, I could smell the sweet, fresh food that was being cooked. And so that got me more excited. And so I saw a servant coming out from the door. And so I asked, hey, what's happening? And the next thing that I heard from the servant, my face changed. Because as he was about to say these four words, something triggered in me. He said, your brother is back. Now, if you were watching me in a movie screen, those words caused a visual effect on me. It's called the dolly zoom. The subject, like me, at the center, but the background was moving and was zooming in. You know, and you couple that with the the music, the music score from the movie Psycho. The deafening scream of the violin. You know, so when I heard those four words, that was happening. Anyway, if you find it hard to understand that, it's okay. I'm just simply saying that I can't believe what I have just heard. Your brother is back. Do you remember that scandalous thing that he did some years back, right? My brother, he he told my dad, father, and me that he's going away to another country, finding a more exciting life, and the audacity, the nerve to ask for his inheritance from father while he was still alive. Oh, if you have seen my father, he was devastated. He looked like his world got crumbled. And me, I was deeply hurt. What a way to abandon his family, right? And so that day, when I heard from the servant that he is back, something in me started to boil. And the next 9 words that I heard from the servant, he said, "Your father has killed the fattened calf for him." Mm. Mm. Ah. Oh boy. And so while this was happening, in my face, the servant didn't know what to do next. He just immediately went back to the house and searched for my father. Yes. And some moments later, my father comes out and he was talking to me and he said, "Hey, your brother is back. It's good that he's back and he's here safe and sound." So he was pleading me, even though he was seeing this face, he was pleading that I would go back and welcome him again. Now, do you think that I wanted to go in? No, no way. Instead, I blurted out. I exploded and told my father, "I have served you for many years and I have never disobeyed you. Now this son of yours came who has devoured your property with prostitutes, and you killed a fattened calf for him? What were you thinking? Why are you throwing a party and celebrating? What is it with you? Have you forgotten what he has done to us?" My dad, my father, he has a way with words. He said, "My son, you are always with me, and all I have is yours. But it's fitting to celebrate and be glad because your brother has come. He is alive. He was dead but is alive. He was lost and is found." Now let me ask you, with an answer like that, how would you have reacted? Like I said, Father really has a way with words. Has really a way with words. And so I was speechless. But I was still angry. I was angry, but for the sake of Father, I complied. I obeyed him. I went in with him. And so I waved hello to the guests. I gave my smile, although it was a fake smile, because I was bitter inside. I was resentful. And there my brother was, in the middle of the room. And as I saw him, I think I was dragging my feet to go near him. But then he saw me. He spotted me, and then he ran to me and embraced me. But my body was as cold as ice and unwelcoming. I think he noticed that. Anyway, so I was ushered to the table. I sat down, and guess what? They served me a steak, the fattened calf. And so I sat there at the dining table with my dad, and next to him was my brother, and I could hear my brother telling his story, how it was like for him in the distant land, that even though at first he enjoyed his experience there, but eventually life became hard for him, and he became bankrupt, and then he started to feel sorry for himself and sorry for what he has done, and he came to his senses and decided to come back. And then on, blah, blah, blah. And while I was there, I was not really interested, although I heard those things, and then I tuned him out. I just went on stuffing the food in my mouth. But a little later, one of our neighbors sat next to me, and he started to narrate how he witnessed my father as soon as he saw my brother from a distance, that he ran to him, he kissed him and embraced him, he honored him with the robe and with the ring and a pair of sandals. Wow. Do you think I got impressed by that? Do you think I was rejoicing? No way. In fact, that's it. That I've had enough of it, that I stood up, left the party, and stormed straight to my bedroom. I didn't care what my guests, how they reacted, let alone my father and my brother's reaction. I was so mad. But then that evening, as the house became quiet, the guests have left. And for sure, my father and his dearly loved son were already sound asleep. I couldn't sleep. My head was swirling, and my mind was actively recollecting what has just happened hours before. And the dialogue that happened kept replaying in my mind. The first instance, when I burst in anger, I told my father, "Look, I have served you for many years and I have never disobeyed you." I was beginning to realize that I was disrespecting him and dishonoring him by acting that way. In fact, at the beginning, when I met him at the door, I didn't even address him as father. Did you notice that? While this son, who has been dutiful and obedient, this son who has been loyal to the family, this son was also proud, arrogant, self-righteous. I said, "Many years I've served you. You could have given me even as a young goat." I said that only to make a point, how huge the difference is. While he killed a fattened calf for him, in order to make me humble and modest, I just used the word young goat. But in all honesty, there's a huge difference. If you would consider me as the faithful son, I would have deserved 10 times more fattened calves, because I was the good son in the family. I was the better son. Compared to my brother, he was rebellious. He was the prodigal son. But I began to realize, while I was reflecting on those, that I was actually self-centered. I was self-absorbed, self-entitled. And that at that time, when my brother returned, I was bitter, I was hateful. Well, not only that time, since the day he left the house, I was really hateful and angry. And so at the party, I I was not only socially distancing, but emotionally and relationally distancing myself from sinners like him. And here I was feeling superior than him, that I was holier than thou, much holier. But then again, as I said, I was beginning to feel guilty of being self-centered. And then I remember shouting, "You killed a fattened calf for him." I felt so jealous. My heart was crying, unfair, it's unfair. Why could my father just easily kill the fattened calf, not just a fattened calf? That gives you an idea that, we have one fattened calf really reserved for a special occasion. And I felt that my father just threw that away for some trash who just came back, referring to my brother, of course. But I have forgotten, or I have missed the part that the reason why my father did that to my brother was all because the kind of heart that he had. I didn't admit it at first, but I saw it in his eyes. When he was telling me that my brother was home, he couldn't contain the joy that he was feeling. And so, I missed realizing the truth that my father was generous, was unconditional, was extravagant. So while all these things are running in my mind and stirring in my heart, something has begun to dawn in me. Just like the new dawn, literally already coming out that night. That my heart is no different from my brother's waywardness. And that hit me like a rock. I was as guilty as having the same wicked heart. I may have stayed with Father for a very, very long time and tried to be faithful to him, but I was a lost son too, like my brother. I was just as messed up, only in the inside. That's the difference. I was so concerned about the external behaviors that I was trying to keep up for my dad and for my family. But internally, I was broken, I was wounded. There were things that were unresolved in me. And I just covered that up with external things, with just trying to be the faithful son in the family. I was a hypocrite, in other words. I was concentrating all about my image, about the external, while sacrificing the realities of the internal. And as I was reflecting deeply on these things, I didn't realize that the sun was already started to come up. The morning has broken. But you know, I have yet to tell you the best part in all this. And those are remembering the words that my father replied to me earlier when he said, "Son." He called me son. A tender call from a loving father. And so I remembered afresh about my true identity in him as his child. He called me son. And he said, "You are always with me." That's a loving affirmation that I belong to him and that he would never abandon me and forsake me. That his affection of me will never be transferred to my brother. He loves me and he loves my brother. And then he said, "All that I have is yours." Wow. I am a shareholder. I'm co-heir with my father's treasures. But more than that, it meant that he and I have a strong bond that can never be broken. And it will never be taken away. What an assurance. So there I was. As I was deeply reflecting on these things, I was slowly getting out of bed. And, the dawn is breaking, it's already morning. And I came to my senses. I said to myself, I can see now that my brother was beginning to embrace his identity in my father, his restored identity. And he was beginning to experience the blessings of father again as a son. While me, I was dying of bitterness and resentment. So I decided to tell my father, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you and before my brother. I have disrespected you. I have discriminated my brother, and I was proud. I had a wicked heart. Please forgive me." Well, my father forgave me. To cut the long story short, he forgave me. I got reconciled with my brother, and we were a family again. Now, 1 week after, as I was again coming home from a hard day's work, as I was going near the house, I heard music and the sound of feasting. And that got me genuinely excited. Because this time, I already understood, the heart of my father throwing a party because of his generosity and extravagance. And yes, giving a party for a second time for my brother, it's just fitting because of the goodness that God has given to us as a family. And so as I opened the door, well, everybody in the room turned to me and they started singing, "For he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good fellow." That party was for me? It was, because after the song ended, my father walked across the room towards me and he said, Son, you're always with me. All that is mine is yours. But it's time to celebrate and be glad, because you were once lost and now you're found. And then he kissed me and embraced me. He put a robe on me. He honored me with a ring and a pair of sandals with memory foam. That time whenever he called me son, I completely cherished every moment, every time he says that. Because I know I am dearly loved by him. And I am a favored son, inasmuch as he favors my brother. And he is well pleased with me. And that night was really memorable, because I was served with a very delicious steak. A fattened calf was killed in my honor, and I enjoyed it very much. I really enjoyed that steak. So praise God. Now, many people say that based on my family story, yeah, the prodigal was my brother who came back and got reconciled, right? But I guess you may have figured out by now that I, as an elder brother, was lost too and was a prodigal as well. So my brother and I were the prodigal sons. But a lot of people don't know this, that there's a third and ultimate prodigal here. My father. I know. You may say, what? Isn't it that your father represents God in the story? Yes, of course. Well, the word prodigal has its nuances, and it also means extravagant, lavish, generous. And that's what my father was. And that is who our God is. Our God welcomes the wayward who returns to him. And if our Father is like that, so must we. So must we. Hi, I'm Raymond Chan, for real this time. Well, from the first person narrative preaching that I just did, notice that only about half of it came from the Bible in Luke chapter 15, verses 11 to 32, the parable of the lost son, which was narrated by Jesus when to his listeners, especially to the hypocritical and proud religious leaders who were there. But since it's a fictional story, I merely expanded it and delved more into the psyche of the elder son. How I portrayed him, especially his prideful attitude, was still consistent to what Jesus was pointing at when he was telling the story. So Jesus was indirectly likening the attitude of the elder son with that of the religious leaders. So the happy ending of the elder son in the parable was a choice I made in depicting one of two possible resulting responses of the elder son to the father's explanation or invitation. The son either has continued to remain hard-hearted, didn't join the party at all, and never forgave his brother, or he did how I exactly portrayed him a while ago, and it resulted into a blessed redemptive story for the whole family. With this, I'll leave you with this with these points to ponder. Okay, number one, In what ways have you identified yourself with the elder son as he discovered that his heart was at the root of the problem? So as the Spirit reveals them to you, say a prayer of confession and renewal of heart. Secondly, how would you like for God to grow you into having an extravagant heart like His? Again, how would you like for God to grow you into having an extravagant heart like His? Tell Him about it now. Number 3, consider the pandemic we have been facing. How is it affecting your inner being? Are you letting your inner self, your character, direct how you respond to your outward situation? Or is it the other way around? Bring this honestly to the Lord. And since you are viewing this on a video, you can always backtrack, go over these 3 things, make a screenshots of them so that you can just come before the Lord with all these. Thank you.
May Christ dwell richly in your hearts through faith. May you know the love of Christ that surpasses knowledge, and may you be filled with all the fullness of God. Now to Him who is able to do far more abundantly than all that we ask or think, according to the power at work within us. To Him be glory in the church and in Christ Jesus throughout all generations, forever and ever. Amen.